Hello everyone, this is Dr. Nesara Kadanakuppe from the Nitte Institute of Communication. Today we have with us Mr. K.N. Shanth Kumar, the Director of the Printers Mysore Private Limited and the Chairman of Press Trust of India. Welcome to NICO, sir.
Thank you.
K.N. Shanth Kumar comes from the family of media entrepreneurs. He has made several experiments in the field of journalism, taking journalism into the hearts of people. He believes in media credibility and he propagates true journalism. So let us welcome Shanth Kumar once again and let us have a chit chat together, sir.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, sir. The tagline of Prajavani and Deccan Herald is the most credible newspapers of Karnataka. Why do you give so much importance to credibility when it comes to journalism, sir?
I think one of the basic tenets of journalism is telling the truth, and that is what we want to do fundamentally. And has always been a part of our publishing philosophy that we must be as correct, as accurate, as truthful as possible, and we must bring the right picture as it is to the people. That's our philosophy, and that's what we've always believed in. And we have worked over generations. We have worked very hard at doing that. And I think credibility is something that is built not in a day or two. It is built over decades. And of course, it can be lost in a moment. So we are very careful about it, and we are very diligent about it, and we continue to practice that even in these difficult times. But it is something very close to our heart that we practice good journalism, and a fundamental of good journalism is being credible, being truthful, and being accurate. I think that's the minimum we owe our readers who are reading us so closely for so many years. We owe it to our readers and the people that we give them authentic news.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, how according to you, freedom of press in India is practiced, and how the media organizations, that too the management, is giving free hand to the journalists to practice freedom of press?
Well, the freedom of press is basically derived from our constitution, where there is freedom of expression, and I think it has its ups and downs over the years. The press, compared to I think most parts of the world, is a fairly free press. I wouldn't say completely free, because there is nothing such as absolute freedom. It has gone into different phases at different points. For example, during the emergency, it was a very difficult time for media at that point. But overall, I think we have had a fairly free press. We've had issues with at different stages where restrictions have come in at various stages. Pressures are of course there. I think that's a part of life. I think it's a dream to expect that everything will be free and everything is hunky dory. It's not like that. There will be, and it's a constant battle for retaining your freedom, you're retaining your independence, and it's a battle, that is always there. And but of course, although some of the indices that are published by international bodies are not very favorable to India, but I think it's a mix. I think there are parts of India and parts of the media which are fairly free. The other parts are finding it difficult depending on where you are. So I think it's a mixed bag, but by and large it is fairly free. As far as the publishers or the owners of media is concerned, that of course is a little bit of a different matter. That is left to them. I mean, it's also too idealistic to believe that any journalist will have a completely free hand. After all, you are a part of an organization. You are a part of a company, a brand, a legacy, and therefore there will be certain reasonable restrictions as to what the journalist can do. But I guess a journalist should find his or her place of comfort and satisfaction. I think so. It depends on that person whether he or she is comfortable in that environment. But by and large, I think a lot of the major legacy publishers, especially, have given a fairly, I would say, reasonable amount of freedom. Of course, it comes with restrictions. You have to follow the law. You have to be reasonable, and you cannot cross certain boundaries that are there. But as long as one knows what the boundaries are and the limits are, I think it's reasonable. you can't expect an ideal situation, and that's very difficult. But again, I think even between the journalists and the management, there has to be a constant interaction as to where you find balance. And sometimes if the journalist feels a little bit restricted, he or she should be able to express that and try and get some relief or try and get some space. It's an ongoing process which is there. It's not something that is once laid out and it's fixed.
And also, sir, as the editorial process is involved, there is a saying that it's not just always the freedom to write, but also not to write. How a journalist must behave in when it comes to freedom of not to write.
Well, I think two things are important when you consider what you produce and what you write and what you don't write. One is, of course, the law, and you have to be well within the law as to respect the various parts of the law, and should be within the framework of the law, and therefore you may be restricted on writing something. And that, I think, a journalist needs to be well aware of what the laws governing the country are, and be guided by that in the work he does or he or she does. The other part is, of course, ethics of journalism. There are issues in terms of ethics where we should practice that, and I think those should be laid out and clearly understood by all journalists. It could differ from organization to organization, and that depends on what the organization feels close to it, apart from the general stuff. Issues like privacy and things like that are important in certain cases. Everybody can't claim privacy. Public people claiming privacy is a bit of a joke, in the sense that you are a public personality, and therefore by nature of the fact that you are a public personality, you automatically, your privacy reduces, I think, because a lot of the things that you do are in the public sphere, and therefore answerable. So I think it's a combination of the law and the ethics, and it's a very delicate situation, and it would also depend on what the kind of work that is being done. So again, I wouldn't have a clear-cut single rule as to what one can write and what cannot write. It needs to be examined depending on the particular case, on the report, on the incident, or on the issue that is being written upon, and needs to be discussed and dealt with. And I think decisions taken, on each case.
Also, to ask the same question in a very different way, can a reporter say no to the editor when a reporter is asked to write something, or how smart he can go replying that?
That's a difficult question, really. But a reporter saying, I mean, he should have good reasons why he's saying no. It can't be, absolutely on his own will and fancy. So if he has good reasons, I think the editor should listen to him or her, listen to the reporter in terms of whether there is a decent, good reasoning for him declining to do a particular story. It could be even the case that the reporter herself or himself is conflicted or has a particular interest in that. So it depends on the reason as to why the reporter declines to do a particular story, or do a part of a particular story maybe, or not write something or write something. So I think it's a case-to-case thing. So it's a delicate thing, and I think the reporter should have the freedom to express his or her inability to do something and read that out with the editor. Why not?
Yes, sir. And also, do you think that such kind of atmosphere is there for journalists to discuss among themselves, between editor and reporter, between reporter and editor? If someone has a question, can they ask them?
That is the responsibility of the leadership. The leadership should create that atmosphere in a newsroom where such free and frank discussion is possible. The minute you are creating barriers or restrictions, or a feeling that the questions are not welcome or should not ask questions, or it's a burden, then there's a problem. I think free and fair exchange of views should be promoted, and of course after that the decision of the editor is final. There's no question about that, because somebody has to take a decision on the matter. But discussion should be encouraged, and points of view should be encouraged, even if they're not in consonance with what the editor's point of view is. But I think leadership should give space and listen to the team when they want to say something.
Yes,
that's
sir.
very important.
As far as media policies of the government is concerned, what kind of media policies the media houses today expect from the government, And what is your comment on the present media policies? Are they in favor of the media houses, or are they not? How do you comment on this?
Well, the media policy that we expect from the government is, I think, basically fairness. I think we are the media expects a fair amount of freedom to say what it wants to within, of course, the frameworks of the law and the ethics of journalism. And I think that's really what we expect from them, apart from a policy. I think a part of the media policy is probably the advertising part also, you might mean. And there I think it's just a question of being fair and transparent about what they do. And one is not asking, I think, for any favors, but there should be, I think, transparency in their policy as to how they, where and when and how they advertise. But as far as the rest of the policy is concerned, it's more of one finds of late that there are more and more restrictions, more and more barriers put in place to practice good journalism. And I think that is something that is not desirable, which is not good for media, it's not good for a democracy. And I think the government should have minimum restrictions. And of course, it's difficult to say this, but the government should be more receptive to criticism, because criticism is not something that is done by a media house to spite the government or to be against somebody, but it's in the interest of putting out their point of view, which can be contested, and as long as it's the debate takes place, I think it's a good sign. But I think traditionally, and now especially more and more, there is a dislike for open discussion on such policies in the media, and sadly, a large section of the media is falling, is succumbing to those pressures and not indulging in that, and therefore you get a quite a skewed picture when you look at what is being put out in the media, in large sections of the media. It's unfortunate.
And also, I'm curious to know what is the present stand of the government that when it comes to subsidies, giving subsidies, when it comes to newsprint, when it comes to television, satellite rights. How exactly the government is helping the media houses compared to the past?
Frankly, I don't know about television media because I'm not familiar with that as satellite rates. I'm not familiar, so I will not comment on that. But subsidies, I don't think one expects from the government really. And there have been no subsidies as far as newsprint is concerned. As far as I'm concerned, I remember in the last 4.5 decades that I've been involved in the media, there are no subsidies that I have come across as far as newsprint is concerned. And I don't think any media house should expect subsidies from the government. I don't see why we should need subsidies.
Why not, sir?
Because I don't think it's media is a our companies are running as a business, and they should like any other business. And secondly, if you take a subsidy from a government, you're going to be expected to return
under control.
Not really, not under control, or you're expected to be doing the government a favor because you're getting subsidies. So I don't think that's a good idea to have subsidies from the government for media if you want a free and fair media.
Yes.
So that's not desirable, and I don't think companies expect that. I guess we just want, they should be transparent and fair as far as their advertising is concerned, and no subsidies.
Yes, sir. This will be my last question, sir. What will be the future of print journalism in India, since you represent print, and also your family is representing print since a very long time, and what kind of transformations we can expect in the future?
Well, as far as the, when you say print journalism exists in physical format, plus I would think in the digital format, although it's not printed, but it's printed on a screen, I suppose, you can look at it that way. So as far as the printed product is concerned, I think it's going to decline. In fact, I was reading a piece of information the other day that in America, from 2005 to 2000, I think 24 or 25, 1/3 of the newspapers in America are going to disappear. So that's the kind of, gives you a sense of the kind of rate of decline of the printed product. We may not be declining at that level here in India as yet, but I think it's a sign of things to come. that print will certainly decline. I don't think, I'm a believer that print will not disappear. It will remain, maybe in a different forms, in different frequencies, different formats, but print will remain. Because as history tells us, no medium has disappeared from the face of the earth. When radio was invented, they said other print will disappear. When television came, they said even radio and print will disappear. So none of those forms have disappeared, and they have remained. But of course, they have remained in different formats. They've evolved. So I think print will also evolve. But certainly, in terms of size, it will have a smaller presence than it has today. I have no doubt about that.
Okay.
And content in terms of text and images and videos will be probably transforming into the digital space at a faster rate. So digital will grow as it is growing even now. It will continue to grow, and it will occupy a larger space, and the space that is occupied by print will shrink. I have no doubt about that.
And do you also think that the digital platform media will be handled by the print journalists in the future?
I see no reason for that. You see, I think this category of print journalists, video journalists, digital journalists, or whatever journalist is going to disappear. I firmly believe that these are all categories that were there earlier, like you were a print journalist or a television journalist. But in today's world, I would think that's a bad choice if somebody wants to call it that, and say that I am so-and-so journalist. That's going to be, you need to be absolutely, be able to function across media and do these things. I mean, there are journalists who today are practicing, let us say, mainly in print or whatever, but they do some they do some work on video, they do some work in television, they do some work in cinemas. They are writing scripts, they are writing dialogues, they are writing subtitles. I think this is what the future is laid out for journalists. I don't think you're going to call them any particular. They may have a strength, which may be their main strength, but they need to have ability to function across categories, across technologies, across varieties of journalism. So, and I think the word journalism itself is going to expand in terms of what it means. It's not going to be very narrow, although the core will be still there. But I think when one has to be multi-talented, multitasking, and multi-disciplined for being successful in the future. Yeah.
Sir, as a curious student of journalism, I wanted to ask you this question in particular. It's a very long time. The Guardian decides to go online, and it shuts down its print variant, and most of the newspapers in the world are giving the variants, online variants. But as far as the interactivity is concerned, the PDF pages produced are not interactive. The next day it will update. Is there a chance that every time when the user gets an opportunity to access the PDF, the e-variant, will there be an update, news update in the future?
First of all, I think I don't think you're correct in saying that the Guardian has closed its print section. The Guardian still prints newspapers, so you can get a printed newspaper in various markets. I think in Europe of the Guardian. First point. Second thing is, as far as you are discussing, I think the e-paper, as it's called.
E-paper.
The e-paper is a static paper. That's why it's called an e-paper, and it has its own market. Now, so people want to see it in that format. Now, whether it's going to be updated is going to be a question that has to be answered in the future. But I'm not so sure that people who are habituated or want to see the paper in the e-paper format want it updated every minute or every hour or anything like that. There could be I think they may be already existing, or there could be possibility of maybe having 2 or 3 editions of the newspaper during the day, maybe one out in the morning, one out in the afternoon, one out in the evening, with some changes, updation of news, etc. That is a distinct possibility, but I don't think that will happen at the kind of pace that happens on a website or on an app, which is updation or new stories coming out throughout the day, probably every minute or every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. That is not going to happen.
What it takes to do that, sir? What it takes to do that, in the sense, what is the prerequisite to update news minute by minute for an e-paper?
That would require that you have to design the paper every minute, redesign it. I mean, designing a page or a whole newspaper, which is about anywhere between 10, 12, 16, 18, 20 pages, it has to be redesigned every time, and that may be a challenge. Of course, that challenge may be again answered by technology, because there are solutions now which are automatic page making systems,
Yes, sir.
which are driven by AI. So and it maintains the design elements that your particular brand has, because in the printed product or in the e-paper, the design is very important, because that gives the brand personality. Typically, even if you see somebody 15, 20 feet away reading a newspaper, by just looking at the page without looking at the name, you can make out which newspaper it is. So keeping in mind the brand's design, there are technologies emerging now where the layout of the page can be done automatically within a few minutes. So that possibly could give us a way of updating an e-paper more frequently than now, because otherwise it's a lot of manual work, which may not be easy or that meaningful in terms of a business proposition.
You just spoke of technology and artificial intelligence. Whenever we bring in a topic, for discussion, that to technology and artificial intelligence, there is a fear behind, the journalists. It may take away their jobs. How do you describe this, sir?
There is a fear not only among journalists, but among a lot of professionals all over the world, that the jobs will be taken away, because a lot of the jobs that people do are repetitive jobs, although with some intelligence, etc., etc. But there is a fear that, for example, people who artists, for example, all kinds of artists, or caricatures, people draw caricatures, line drawings, paintings, are created within a few seconds by artificial intelligence, and people are fearing that. But somehow I'm not convinced by that, frankly. One, maybe partially by, due to, it's an emotional reaction, I think, more than anything else, that I can't see that human beings will become completely irrelevant and machines are going to take over all the activities. Yes, machines will be good and improve tremendously in terms of the kind of, repetitive works, mechanical, and certain other routine stuff. But I don't see that journalist's job will be replaced by a machine. I see that it will become more complex because of using artificial intelligence. It will help the journalist. It will make life easier, maybe sometimes more difficult. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It could be misleading to you. But I would think still finally good journalism has to be produced finally by a human being. I mean, I don't see that situation where it will be completely taken over by artificial intelligence. Maybe a lot more work will be done by the machine, but the final decisions on certain things, like you asked before, as to what to publish, what not to publish, whether to publish, not to publish, those questions will remain by and large, and they will take on more importance. And I think journalists will be called upon to add more value to what is already being put out by the machine, which I think will be difficult for the machine to do, because the journalist is going to be that much more better equipped.
And if you look at the same question from a capitalist view of angle, how a capitalist will consider the adoption of artificial intelligence in media?
I don't see a difference in angle. I mean, as far as most publishers are concerned, they're all capitalists anyway, because most I would say 90 or 95% of media organizations in the world run for profit. You see, so, and there's capital infused, and they make money like we do. So I don't see much of a difference in that. I think technology will be used where it is beneficial for the business, regardless of your philosophy, I think. So I think technology will certainly, and it has to be used, because if you don't use technology, you're not going to be competitive, and therefore you may not survive. So I think it's an essential that you use technology, because you need to be competitive. And that's the only way you will be competitive, because everybody else is going to be using technology, you see.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, sir. Well, that was Mr. K. N. Shanth Kumar. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.